Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Julie Ann. So the photo I have today is at Big Cedar Lodge. It's down in southern Missouri. There are a whole series of really nice cabins there. I think they're in conjunction working with Cabela's, and Dogwood Canyon is also part of it. It's like a nature park, but this is like the resort part where you can stay overnight. I had such a generous friend who literally bought me a honeymoon to go here. So the reason I wanted to share this photo was the path that is kind of at the top of the picture. To me, that correlates with what I want to say about finding and following a higher path. So I don't think I've ever really had true darkness in my heart where I turned away from God entirely. Like, I've always believed in Him. I've not always made Him the center of my life, definitely. There were times where I didn't even think about Him, but I didn't necessarily say He didn't exist or really went into a rebellious set of mind. But just the same as this resort had a lot of different paths where you could walk around with very nice waterfalls and pools of like an emerald color. They were so beautiful. And this path was, parallel to where I was walking, but it was a path that was obviously higher than mine. So, albeit I was on a decent path, it wasn't the highest path that I could be on. So I really like this correlation that the bridge kind of looks like it's in the air is really a good metaphor for what I want to talk about, which is when I fell away from the church, why I did that, and why I also came back. So let me just say that there are multiple factors that go into why I fell away from the church. A lot of it was me not doing the spiritual work that it takes to build and maintain a testimony and conversion in my heart. But also it had to do with people outside of me and what they were choosing to do that was offensive to me. And I took that to mean that I just shouldn't go to church. I did not understand how to separate the truth of the gospel and how people choose to act, that they are completely different things, and one does not equate to the other. I cannot judge the truth of the gospel based on people who are imperfect, trying to live it or not. I know now that my falling away was due to me not developing the spiritual eyes to see and spiritual ears to hear and understand what the word of the Lord is trying to teach me, and that's on me. I take full accountability for that. But the issue also is that as a young person trying to grow up and learn boundaries and learn right and wrong, I just had to have more time to mature in certain ways and also heal in certain ways. I have a lot of trauma that I am still healing from, that I have really just recently come to acknowledge happened in my younger years, and that was a huge roadblock as well. So with all that being said, what happened is I largely quit going to church because of music, which anyone who knows me now might find a little amusing because I love to do it now. So I began piano lessons at 8 years old, and then I had, I think about 12 or 13 years old. Well, I was performing music in primary class, so that's ages 12 and under. I was performing music there every once in a while, and then it was about 12 or 13. I remember that I was a beehive when I was officially called as a ward musician I don't know exactly what they called it, but I was playing the organ and was given a few organ lessons, but I pretty much just played the organ like I would play a piano. I had no idea what I was doing with the stops and all that, so I just played a song. And I look back now and I realize that was probably too much for me to have on my shoulders. But I did it, and there was a certain reputation that I became to be a music person, and I don't know anybody else in the church who has had any kind of music calling. It's essentially what you do at church, because there are few of us. And even among those who do play, there are even fewer that are actually willing to do it. At least that's my experience. And so I became known as a musician, and it began to... I'm trying to be as objective as possible and take accountability where I need to, but also not take accountability where I don't need to. And I can see now that I was coerced quite a few times. I remember at one point there was a baptism that was going on in an evening, and during that day, earlier in the day, I had fallen down the stairs and hurt my elbow, my left elbow. My right hand had a huge abrasion across it, and I hurt my ankle pretty badly. But I tried to say no to playing to the baptism that night, but I was coerced into playing anyway, and I remember having to do that, and it hurt so bad, because it was my right ankle too, and that's where I used the pedal, the sustain pedal, so everything hurt. But I did it anyway, because I didn't understand that once I said no and somebody didn't accept that I could still say no. So I really started to resent things like that, and then we would have like a stake conference where I would be asked to play literally 30 minutes before it began. And so I didn't have good boundaries, and that played a part in it. But also it was coercion at times. Like, oh, but you're the best, so you have a duty to do this for your fellow man. But I honestly believe that is true to a point, but it was not without me having agency. I wasn't allowed agency at times. And so it was about, I think I was about 15. I remember I was in Young Women's, and the young woman got up who was doing the conducting, and she has announced that this person is going to say this, and then we're going to have this, and then Julie's going to play this song, and then we're going to have this. And I spoke up, and I said, hey, I didn't know that you wanted me to do that, and you didn't ask me, and I'm not going to do it. And she literally said, yes, you are. I said, what? No, I'm not. And she said, yes, you are, again. And at that point, I was mad and got up and left the room. And I literally, from that moment, thought, you know what? If I don't go, they can't make me play anything. Like, I'm trying to say no here, but people are not respecting my choice and saying, well, you're either the only player or the best player. Well, that's not my fault. Which that is true. So I immaturely decided that I was just going to give it up altogether. The whole shebang. I did not understand the eternal implications of what I was doing, because I didn't have that understanding of what the gospel is. I mean, I definitely have had many experiences through music that I know that the things that we sing of are true. I know that God exists. I know that Jesus exists. But back then I just didn't understand the danger of walking away from having that as a part of my life regularly. there were also aspects of the gospel that I didn't understand and didn't delve into to try to understand either. So that was on me. And so I was about 15 when I walked away from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints entirely. I did try to go to a few other churches, but it really wasn't the same spirit that I felt there, that I had felt largely through the music of my home church. I can see some good things that happened there, but it just wasn't the same. And so I just decided to stop going entirely. I fell into some really, really dark things and went to some really dark places. I had a marriage that was really bad. I had been acting out from some trauma that I didn't realize that I had. And I got drunk a few times, and that didn't turn out well either. I really found out that I do not like being in a state where I cannot think clearly. So thankfully I didn't fall into any kind of addiction with that. Thanks be to the Lord for that. And also thanks be to the Lord that I got out of my situation that I was in with my first marriage. I kept trying to leave him, and he kept reeling me back in. He knew exactly how to manipulate me back into coming back to him, even though I was having like a mental breakdown every 6 months. I finally realized this is not working. This kind of directionless life, I was just floating along, this is not working. And so I'll never forget it. It was the April 2009 General Conference. I had decided that I was going to watch General Conference and decide if I needed to leave my husband for good. I had to take all of my codependent manner and shove it aside and think for a moment about my situation in purely logical, mathematical terms. I have tried every variable that I could think of to try to make this equation work, but it was just not working. My first husband was very, very addicted to pornography, and shamelessly so. And so I tried to join him in consuming it, and it just always felt so wrong. I even tried bisexuality. I tried a lot of different things, and it just always felt like it wasn't fulfilling. I didn't want to blow something off unless I tried it. So believe me when I say I tried it all. And because my first husband, the dark place that he was in, he was okay with an open marriage. And so there were really no rules, no restrictions, and also no real connection or love. So I was not happy, and I had to finally come to that realization that this is not happiness or joy. This is slavery. I am at the beck and call of my body and what it might want to do. I am not my own master. And so I prayed for the first time in years. I was gone away from the church for about 19 years. This is probably about the halfway mark. And so I prayed my heart out for the first time in several years. I prayed and I asked for revelation on whether I should leave and really take this opportunity that had been given to me. I can just marvel at the perfect timing of this offer. My parents had a house down in Missouri, and I was in Alaska at this point with my first husband, and I had this offer with my grandma to move to their empty house in Missouri to kind of watch over the house. And it was about 2 weeks before General Conference. And so I had been thinking about this offer. I had told my grandma I would think about it. And so then I prayed, and I said, okay, I'm going to watch General Conference, Lord, and I need you to be very, very clear with me and help me to know, should I go or not? Which I see now as evidence of me still, even through all that darkness, I still had a testimony in personal revelation. Isn't that amazing? So I prayed my heart out and I thought, I will see what happens. And perhaps what I need to do is to treat this situation like an equation where I need to take out the only variable I haven't tried to take out yet, which is the husband. And so I prayed about that and watched General Conference. And at that point, I watched a lot of it and didn't really sink into my head very much, which makes sense, is that spiritual eyes and ears come with work. You have to do the spiritual work to gain these. It's like a muscle. It's not very strong at first. It takes a while to build it up. So I wasn't taking in too much of General Conference. But then Elder Uchtdorf, actually I think at that point he was President Uchtdorf, he got up and gave a talk. And I don't even think that these words were actually said. But what I heard through him clear as day was take a leap of faith. And it hit me so, like, it was electrifying. Like, I literally thought I had been zapped somehow. And I knew I have to go. This is my clear answer that I had asked for, that yes, you need to go. Go with your grandma to Missouri, leave everything you've ever known, and take this leap of faith. And me being the INTJ that I am, I did a whole bunch of research. Okay, what is the crime like down there? What is, the income versus the, debt ratio of people? I did all this kind of research, and I knew going down there that the money I made in Alaska was a lot better, and I had, credit cards going that I wouldn't be able to pay once I was making less pay down there. So I went knowing that I would probably have to file a bankruptcy in order to do this. And I did it anyway. There are so many things that I could have used to excuse myself from not doing this, but partially because of how profound the answer was to go, and also because I knew logically that Heavenly Father knows that I make my decisions through thinking, not through feeling, and He knew that I had put together logically this mathematical equation type of looking at the situation, and He knew how to help me understand and not back out of it. And so I did it. Within 2 weeks, I was down into Missouri, and I had quite the culture shock. I had a hard time finding a job for a little while, but I eventually did find a job. I was just working at Walmart, and that's fine. But the thing is, I met my husband there, my true husband. So I can just look back at my life now and see how everything was so perfectly timed and orchestrated. I mean, now that I have the eyes to see. But back then, I wasn't quite ready still, even though I had such a profound experience with not only personal revelation, but with General Conference. And so what happened at that point is I was single now, and so I went to a singles ward with a friend who was single at the time, who had actually, funnily enough, grown up within Alaska, and she was down there too. So there was that one familiar thing. So I went with her, and I cannot believe that this happened too. It just wasn't my time. So I went to church with her, and it was my first time. I was, feeling like everybody's kind of there to find a spouse, and I wasn't wanting to do that. I had sworn off all dating. I was just there for Jesus. And so I sat down in the chapel before church started, and funny thing happened is that the bishop was, greeting me, and he said, what are your skills? What are your talents? And I was trying to evade the music topic. I said, I can do secretarial work. I'm pretty good at organizing. And he said, what about music? I said, oh, crap. Well, I can't lie to the bishop in the chapel, especially it's a sacred place. So I said, I can sing in a choir, which is true. So then he pressed further and he said, what about any instruments? Do you play the piano? I said, crap, in my mind. And I said, yes, I play. This dude grabs my wrist and is flailing my arm in the air. He said, she plays piano! She plays piano! And as you might imagine, this was exactly what I did not want to happen. The guy asked me to play for their service right then and there, and I was a newbie, and I had just been through all that with my ex-husband. And so I said no. I had to say no 7 times. And he finally relented and let me, have my choice. Thank you. And then I did notice that the person playing wasn't, that skilled. That's not my fault. That other people don't practice is not my fault. So, and I was out of practice too anyway. I don't know if I'd have been much better at that point. So, my friend turned to me and it was so funny. She said, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't ever come back. And you know what? I didn't. So, and especially not to a singles ward where, I really do think that some people are there for good reasons, but also it is kind of a meat market at times. And I wasn't about all that. I mean, I was single, but I didn't know what my options were for I could still go to a family ward while being single. So I just didn't go again. But I just tried to live a good life. And like I mentioned, is that I met my husband at Walmart. And so we got married eventually after a couple of years. I really wanted to make sure that this choice was a good choice. And I actually prayed about it. And I got the answer that yes, he is my true husband. And I had several dreams as well. I'm a dreamer. I have a lot of dreams that have come true in my life, and this was one of them. That I had a dream where I was dancing with a tall blonde person, which my first husband happened to be a tall blonde person. And so the dream morphed into a new guy walked up, and he was slightly shorter and dark-haired, but I could not see his face. But I started dancing with him. And so this is another thing that I've realized that is personal revelation for me that I have never questioned. I've never doubted that the dreams that I've had come true are personal revelation for me. And so I met Nathan, and he was slightly shorter than my first husband and dark-haired. And I just had this sense that was undeniable that he is my true husband. And so I did take my time. We had a decent length engagement, and we got married. And I was still inactive, not reading the scriptures, not praying regularly, just trying to be a good person. And that was good. That is a good thing to do. But there are better ways. There are higher paths available to us. We just have to realize that and concede to that and try to pursue it if that's what we want. And that's what I do want. So fast forward to 2018, and I have, decent people around me. Some of my friends are potheads or drinkers, and that's fine. I didn't partake because I don't like feeling out of control of my decisions. And so I was the only sober one at parties, and it was lonely. I had to realize I am lonely. I have friends, I have people around me, but I am lonely. And I had to realize I am lonely for a specific thing. I am lonely for high moral friends. For people who have the same beliefs as me in not drinking, in not smoking, things like that. And then I thought, oh crap. Where am I going to find people like that? Well, at church. Oh my gosh. I have to go back. So really, yeah, it was at that point a kind of oh crap feeling. I wasn't seeing the joy in it at all. It was me having to admit that I was wrong, which was what I was not looking forward to. But again, I marvel at such perfect timing of the Lord prompting other people to come into my life and talk to me. And actually, He was prompting me too. So I had this friend that he had had a really hard time in his life, and I had tried to tell him things would get better, and he wasn't wanting to hear that. And a couple of years later, he found a nice woman and married her, and I could see how much happier he was. Well, she happened to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I was a kind of casual friend with her on Facebook, and so I realize now it was a prompting. I felt like maybe I should reach out to her. I wonder what she likes to do for fun. I wonder what her personality is like. I was just wondering about her. And so I reached out on Facebook, just posted something on her wall, and that turned into an exchange that involved her inviting me to a Relief Society activity. Now, at this same time, I had been very prideful and was thinking that, hey, I make a lot of money, I'm doing pretty well for myself, and I'm not really connecting with my husband lately, and so I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna go off onto my own. And the Spirit was whispering to me, no, this is your responsibility to water your own grass. If your grass is not as green as you want it to be, it's because you're not watering it. And after he said that, he put the song Love at Home in my mind for 3 days straight. Constant playing of this song in my mind. And so all these things happening all at the same time was to bring me back. And so I had talked to my friend and decided, okay, I'm going to go. And as I went to that activity, it was a music activity, which was hilarious. The Lord absolutely has a sense of humor. And so we played Name That Tune, and my team won because I knew all the songs. And there was a lady who didn't know me from Adam and actually turned around and said, "Who are you?" Because I'm just this random visitor who showed up and knows all the songs. So, lo and behold, I had myself a good time. I got my competitive streak satisfied by winning the game, and I also had fun with music, which I think was a healing, like a beginning of the healing with me and my attitude towards church and music. So it was just all so perfectly orchestrated. I cannot believe how I didn't see that at that time. But so I went to the activity, and then shortly after that, I have this Love at Home stuck in my mind with this sense that I could be putting a lot more effort into my marriage. And so I thought, sometimes when I have a song really badly stuck into my head, I listen to it and then it will go away. So I decided I'm going to listen to this song. And I searched for it, and the Tabernacle Choir sings so beautifully. And it was such a profound moment once I listened to that. I just broke down. And it was literally like I swallowed my pride. Like I literally felt a lump in my throat that was going down into my gut to be expelled out of my body as waste. It was the most incredible, difficult moment, but also beautiful moment at the same time. And that was the moment I decided to go back to church and not fall away again. I had to admit that this is the true Church of Jesus Christ that has been restored from ancient times. It is now the same structure and the same authority coming straight from Jesus Christ, and that is why the Spirit feels different there. It comes in more abundance and more profundity, and it has been encapsulating my whole body at times. And I just haven't experienced that anywhere else, in any other church, in any other situation. And so I testify that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the Church of Jesus Christ upon the earth. And that when Jesus comes for the second time, that he will say that this is his church. I have been back into activity for about 7 years now. Come next March, it'll be 7 years. And I have my spiritual trajectory has just taken off into the best direction. Not a decent direction, not a good or better, but the best. And I am forever grateful to my friend who invited me to that Relief Society activity, because I think that was also another indication that, there are people out there who really want to include you, who want to do the same things that you want, like wholesome things that don't involve you hurting your body with drugs and alcohol, the things that are good all around. There are other people who want that same thing. And even though this earth and even every person on this planet is an imperfect person, and we misconstrue things and live the gospel imperfectly, that does not detract from the fact that the gospel is the true way to happiness and light and love. And I testify of these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.